Okay, so as we continue to wait for people to join us, let's just get started with some introductions and territorial acknowledgements. So I'm going to pass it over to Dawn to kick it off.
Thanks, Mindy. Hi, Scott. Hi, Cindy. My name is Dawn Sheldon. I'm the Marketing and Engagement Project Coordinator at UBC Okanagan. And today I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the UBC Okanagan campus, as well as my home here in beautiful Lake Country, where I'm joining you from today, is situated or both situated on the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan Nation. As a settler on these lands who is so incredibly lucky to call this place home, I'm committed to learning more about and reflecting on the true history of Canada's relationship with Indigenous peoples and doing my part to share these stories with others. And I will pass to Jesse.
Yes, thank you, Don. Thank you, Mindy. Jesse Guercho here, Employer Liaison Coordinator at Thompson Rivers University, located on the Kamloops campus right now, which is also situated on the traditional and unceded lands of the Tecumseh within Secwepemc. And it's an honor and privilege to be able to work, live, and play within Kamloops and within Tecumseh and within Habitatary community here today. So pleasure to be with you all.
Great. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Jesse. Finally, my name is Mindy Goby, and I'm with the University of Northern British Columbia, coming in from the Prince George campus, which is located on the unceded, therefore stolen, ancestral lands of the Lheidli Nation. And just a reminder that we recognize the land as an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we all reside on, and a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on this land from time immemorial. It is also important to understand the long-standing history that has brought each and every one of us to reside on this land and to seek to understand our place within that history and within colonialism. It is my responsibility and every settler or non-Indigenous person to learn about and respect the traditions of the people of this land, as well as to work towards truth and reconciliation, calls to action, not just as members of each of our institutions, but also as a member of the community and society as a whole. So we also acknowledge that you are joining us from many places near and far, and if you could please introduce yourself and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands by using the chat function. So we'll just give folks a moment to do that. And for folks, if you're not sure whose land you are situated on, you can use the link in the chat that Dawn has provided at native-land.ca, and it really gives you a great overview of traditional territories, regions, languages, really, really thoughtful and yeah, great resource for folks. So thanks, Scott. Welcome. It's always very important to ground ourselves. Okay. So as we move into our presentation today, again, we're so happy that you could join us. This is our last education event for employers, and we're hoping to have more in the spring. But just to give you a brief overview of INWIL again, we're building on a previously established partnership. Our three institutions had already partnered with in terms of research and innovation, and that innovation talent infrastructure in the BC interior. So with that, we've expanded to other things beyond research, such as work integrated learning. And this particular project we're working on is part of over 60 projects that are funded by the Ministry of Advanced Education, and has three institutions that have a presence within the northern and interior parts of the province. We felt that it was important to really meet the needs of our unique regions. by working together. So again, our mandate is really to create awareness of work integrated learning programs to local small and medium-sized organizations. We know that those challenges that are faced by SMEs are unique to our region and unique to those size organizations as well. So we're hoping that this project really supports to address those challenges, and part of that is providing these employer education events as well. So folks do know that we did do a survey earlier this summer that really gave us direction as to what we wanted to do this fall, and to really address those barriers that the survey touched on. So I'm sure folks know what work integrated learning is at this point. But as defined by INWIL, it's a form of curricular experiential education that is formally integrated into a student's academic studies that provides quality experiences within a workplace or practice setting. It is definitely a partnership between 3 different stakeholders, an academic institution, a host organization, and the student. And a lot of the development and learning objectives that a student really learns about and is exposed through work integrated learning supports them in their employability, their personal agency, knowledge and skill mobility, and then of course, lifelong learning. Now there are 9 different types of WIL. We won't go through all of them, but this project in particular is really focused on, and we are supporting co-op education, as well as community service learning and co-op education and field placements. My apologies. Next slide. So there's a number of benefits in engaging in WIL, and I know you've probably heard this in the last few presentations that we've done, but just to briefly go over them again, first and foremost, really meeting local talent needs. There is currently a labor shortage and has been for a while. And so by participating in work integrated learning, you can really address those talent needs by providing really thoughtful experiences and opportunities for students. And then also build internal capacity within your business and organization as well. Through some of the education events that we've hosted, you know that we provide a number of resources that are available through post-secondary institutions within your region. So through UBCO, through TRU, through UNBC, but also with this project, INWIL as a whole. So we are 3 institutions working together to provide those resources as a one-stop shop resource. And then of course, funding supports. We did have an education event talking specifically about this, but there's a number of funding resources that are available to organizations who wish to hire a WIL student. And of course, if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. Mentorship is a massive component about with work integrated learning. This is a way that students can feel more connected to their community, but employers can also take it a step further to really support and develop future ready students with relevant industry skills as they move from graduation into the workplace. Again, this is a reciprocal relationship, and we're really building that relationship. So students get to add to their academic experience, and then also strengthen their relationships within the post-secondary institution, the community, and with employers. And then of course, employers get to build their profile within our institutions and showcase themselves here and get some exposure. So ultimately, it's you know, it adds value in a number of different ways to a number of different partners, with all of our journeys kind of interconnecting to build our future communities and industries. So as you know, we have built a resource hub. I think Don will put our website in the chat. So we've developed a website. We also have a subscription to our newsletter on this website. So you definitely want to join up for that and join our community partner list. Some of the resources that are on our website is our resource page. So we have PDF documents that go through how to engage with WIL, hiring and onboarding, and grants and funding. You'll find events related to each of those, as well as the recordings of these events on those websites, or on this website. You can post a job through this website, and that position that you posted can then be posted at each of our institutions just through one submission of a job posting. And then, of course, connect with us. So you can book a meeting with us through this website or send us an email. Okay, let's get into today's topic, which is onboarding a student. This is following our previous education event, which was about engaging with work integrated learning and hiring a student. So now that you've hired a student, what's the next step? So really quickly, just going to talk about the timeline of a co-op work term. So this is kind of a little bit on the big picture side. So before the work term, it's really important, after you've hired them, they've gone through the hiring process, keeping them in the loop as to what's going to be happening next. So let's say, for example, you are hiring for May 2022 and you've hired a student today. And so there is a time lapse or a time period there where, you know, the student has gotten their offer letter, they know that they have a position coming in May, but it's really important to stay connected with that student during this time period. And that is regardless of the time period. Even if you hired a student in March 2022, it's still important to keep that student engaged, know and have them ready, and know that you're ready for them to come on. So it's great to start sending them resources or reference materials that they can review prior to coming in on site or starting their first day. Really get them an introduction to the organization. So things that we've seen in the past is employers send students potentially a package prior to their first day, and that package includes you know, their first day, the time they need to show up, dress code, you know, when their lunch breaks are. It might even include a timeline of what their first day might look like, as to you know, which meetings they'll be having, what their training looks like. It could also be videos for students to review. So videos to learn more about the organization itself. And then during the work term, it's really important that you make yourself available. It's important that to make some goals and objectives early on. All of our students will have to provide learning objectives to us as to what they're looking forward to in their work term, but it's also great for the employer to do this as well. So setting SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym that's for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And develop some sort of framework for those check-ins, potentially performance reviews, and making sure that the student feels supported. And then after the work term, it's really important to recognize their efforts and achievements during the work term, because again, you are building a relationship here. If you are looking to meet your local talent needs, but also your future talent needs, you want this student to have a good time, feel like they've contributed to the workplace, learned and gained a number of skills, and that they're going to want to come back, or they're going to be able to share their experiences amongst other students. So this end of term leaving the organization is just as important as bringing them on. So it's important to recognize their efforts, and invite your student, if you have a capacity, to create an exit interview before the work term's over to help them transition. Wrap up any loose ends, and then that also supports yourself and your organization about maybe some adjustments or changes that you might want to make, or students might have some feedback in terms of, if something could have went a little bit better, a little bit more smoother, and then it's just about continuous improvement. So or even for you yourself or any of the supervisors within your organization, maybe there's some feedback there as well. So just with that kind of big picture overview, I am going to pass it on to Dawn, who will get into these a little bit more in detail.
Thanks, Mindy. So we're going to go into some recommendations and considerations in preparation for onboarding your student employee. And the first thing we want to touch on is that orientation and onboarding are two distinct things. Orientation is a one-time event, whereas onboarding is a continual process of building engagement with your employee from their first day, really up until that employee becomes established within your organization. Onboarding is an important process to create a smooth adjustment for new students in the workplace. It also provides an opportunity for yourself or the supervisor to develop, coach, and mentor that individual through that work term as well. And it can assist with turning a great hire into a great employee and really a potential future hire post-graduation as well. Planning and preparing for the student's arrival helps to create a positive experience and ties into that first impression that the student has of your organization. During that onboarding process, you want to ensure you're discussing expectations of the role, explaining how that role complements the organization's broader strategy and goals, and also understand the goals of the student, chat with them about their learning objectives, which I know Mindy mentioned and we'll get into in just a second, as well as their preferred work habits. Within onboarding, orientation is a step in that process where new employees learn about the company and their job responsibilities. At that time, it's just important to orient the student to their new workstation, virtual home office setup, in-person office, whatever it may be, and ensure they're introduced to the team and then have completed all necessary paperwork. So there are some very important considerations to have when preparing to onboard a student that relates to safety and well-being in the workplace. Firstly, as we're sure you all know, all employers, including co-op employers, are required to uphold the Employment Standard Act of BC, and this includes adhering to rules around time allotments for breaks, number of hours worked in a week, and overtime pay for those extra hours worked as well. Secondly, it's important to note that for many students, this might be their first workplace experience, and for many international students, their first Canadian workplace. So it's expected during this time that students may experience some initial anxiety as they transition into their role or into the workplace away from their academics. They do run through pre-employment training with our teams on the co-op side to prepare them for this transition, but it's always nice to reinforce the support for employee well-being and mental health on the employer side of the equation as well, to provide a safe space for that student. And then lastly, please be open and upfront in your onboarding documents, as Mindy mentioned briefly there, on process of what's expected from the student in various circumstances. So for example, if the student's working remotely and having internet connectivity issues, or you're in person and they're running late or are sick, make sure they're aware of the procedures around communicating these situational circumstances to you as the employer. And then the other big one is vacations and days off, just making sure this is laid out up front and that there's an opportunity for open conversation around when you need time off communicated by, and then the employees which have to approve it as such. Thank you. And then as we discussed in our last employer education event, ensuring equity, diversity, and inclusion are not only considerations, but integrated into your workplace practices and procedures, including the onboarding process, is extremely important. And it helps to provide a safe and inclusive environment for everyone that works in your organization. The onboarding process is really your organization's first impression to new hires, and taking an EDI approach can really help to set the scene for your overall company culture and that student's experience, and providing a safe space where students feel like they can belong and feel safe is really, really critical. Another thing to keep in mind as we run through some of these considerations for EDI in the workplace is that it's important to remember that developing and implementing these EDI pieces into your onboarding program and overall company culture takes time and consistent effort. It's definitely okay to not get it right away. And just keeping in mind to keep those lines of communication open with the student is a really great way to ask for feedback and make changes and implement those changes as you go based on that feedback. Our team is going to be pulling together some new EDI resources in 2022, but in the meantime, there's some really great ones out there, and we've got some more information on those at a slide at the end of the deck for you, and we'll make sure we circulate that after this event as well. So today we'll touch on these three considerations you can see on your screen. So the first is identifying and removing barriers during the onboarding process. So being conscious of barriers for students and addressing them up front brings a sense of comfort and safety to the student when they don't have to request an accommodation within their role. So as an example, a student with a hearing impairment may require special technology or closed captioning during virtual events or on Zoom. Offering accommodations up front and asking the right questions ahead of the time when these sorts of barriers may come up for the student is a supportive measure to open up the conversation and ensure that your candidates are given the opportunity to excel in their role, no matter their situation or circumstance. After the student has accepted the position, a really good point of practice could be to ask, in setting you up for success, is there anything we can do to provide to you as you're onboarding to ensure you have everything that you need? The second is being mindful of intercultural communication styles. We mentioned this in our last presentation. It's important to remember that appropriate body language differs across a variety of factors: culture, ethnicity, gender, race, age, class, and social status. Just because a student doesn't exhibit traditional Canadian mannerisms or body language such as personal space or eye contact doesn't necessarily mean they aren't being respectful or that these actions should be taken in a negative light. Reminding your team of these things ahead of time on any employee onboarding process and recognizing these differences can assist in creating a more inclusive workplace culture overall within your organization. In addition, ensuring communication is clear, simple, and concise, and being willing to explain or clarify any technical terminology will serve as a benefit to all employees during the onboarding process. And then lastly, being conscious that students come with different diverse backgrounds and experiences. So throughout engaging with students, you'll be met with diverse employees that can bring a wide variety of experiences to your organization. And it's important to utilize those experiences and capitalize on the student's strengths to work towards the shared learning goals during your time together. For example, an international student may be bilingual, a skill that you can utilize to promote cross-cultural communication within your organization. A student may have background in a different industry, but with skill sets that are unique in a way that gives your organization an edge as well. Acknowledging that people have different lived experiences, and by providing a safe space for the student, you're allowing them to bring their authentic selves to the role. You may be surprised what you'll learn about them, new skills you might uncover, and they might even teach you a thing or two as well. So as you're hiring and onboarding your student, think about different ways to showcase that student's unique talents, transferable skills, and abilities in a way that enables growth and learning on both sides. And then we're going to move into some tips for success. Now that you're all set up, have oriented the student, and are moving further into onboarding that student for the work term with your student hire. So we want to provide some tips for onboarding success. This will likely occur after orientation and in your first couple of days with the student as they continue to familiarize themselves with your organization, your company culture, and as they get settled in. So you may have already touched on some of these items during the interview process. So now's a really great time for a refresher for the student. And if you haven't talked about any of these yet, these tips are a really great way to start to provide a solid introduction to your organization. So the first is discussing expectations and goals. So in hiring a student, you're bringing fresh perspective into your organization. And this also means that the student's looking for your guidance, your mentorship, and skill development throughout the process. Collaborate with your student to better understand what they want to learn during your time together and how they feel they can contribute to your organization's goals and objectives. This helps to set expectations of the role and the student in their term up front. And in addition, it's key to address their responsibilities within their role. So things such as expected team collaboration, schedule expectations, and any workplace etiquette that's important to share as well. The next is anticipating and addressing barriers to success. So as we just touched on this one in the last slide, don't be afraid to ask the student what they need to succeed and work with your team to put strategies in place before that student starts or as they're onboarding. This will ensure the student is provided any mentorship, accommodation, or structure that they need to thrive in their role, and they'll be really thankful that you asked. The next is introducing the team and workplace culture. Building a solid foundation for your organization's relationship with your student hire starts with introducing them to the team and familiarizing the student with your workplace culture. Why do people love working at your organization? Make sure that you share that with them and make sure that the people that they're going to be working with share that with them too. Your team is going to be helping to support the student throughout their journey. So encouraging team members to welcome, support, and provide mentorship to the student as well can both help to develop the student's skills as well as the confidence in your existing team as well. Next is collaborating on a training plan. So set an example by working with the student from the beginning on a training plan that fulfills their learning goals that they would like to work towards during the term. Educate the new hire on how these learning goals fit into the objectives and growth plans for the organization. And then this assists with the student feeling a sense of purpose and direction in their role. And then the last one is providing opportunities for follow-up and feedback. So as we touched on in the beginning, setting consistent meetings, check-ins to ensure the student feels supported and allow space for any questions to be answered as they come up. If a student is comfortable asking questions and being inquisitive during their time with you, they're far more likely to stay the course towards their learning goals and subsequently your organizational objectives as well. And then we're going to chat briefly just about check-ins and site visits. So these worksite visits they play an important role in cooperative education specifically, but similar visits may take place with other forms of work integrated learning as well. In co-op, midway through the work term, the co-op coordinator who works with the student will visit the worksite, whether that's virtual or in person. This site visit provides an opportunity to ensure the students' learning goals are on track and align with their roles and responsibilities set forth in their role. And the co-op coordinator gets to get better acquainted with the student's work environment and specific assignments to ensure both the employer and the student are satisfied with the co-op partnership taking place. Some topics that might come up in discussion during this site visit might include an overview of the student's role, responsibilities, and a co-op assignment, if applicable. These assignments are generally used as a reflection piece for the student to look back on the skills that they've gained so far, what they want to continue to learn in the future, and how this experience might tie into their future career goals as well. Next might be, how the student and employer's collaborative learning objectives are proceeding. So those are the ones that you set out during the onboarding process. Really, if you're on track with those learning goals, or if you're not, and if not, how can the three parties work together to get you back on track? The next is the supervisor's assessment of the student, including the student's preparedness, attitude, and skill level in the workplace. And then lastly, any questions around the co-op program. And this can also include the opportunity for you as the employer to request an extension if you're really happy with that student hire and if they're interested in staying on for an additional term as well. And I am going to pass it to Jessie to talk about tips for onboarding remotely.
Thank you, Don. Yes, I'm going to talk about kind of just actually wrap up the presentation here a little bit. Yeah, so we thought we can put pieces on onboarding remotely. That has definitely been the trend of the past couple of months, close to a couple of years. And I think it's still a great a tool to even onboard students as we go in the future. Even if their positions are going to be in person, this is a good way to kind of start that before the work term opportunities to onboard a student. So a couple of good points here. Encourage productivity tools. The next slide will have a little bit more of a list of productivity tools you can choose from. This could be everything from Google Hangout chat to MS Teams. Trello is a good productivity tool. This is a way to kind of have an understanding what your student is currently working on. Also, just a great way to have a connection with your student, maybe it is one of those chat functions. So it's something definitely we encourage when you are onboarding a co-op student. Ensuring consistency. So excuse me here while I scroll down here. You want to make sure you keep yourself consistency, and that could be everything from it kind of goes into the be available piece too. That can be everything from a weekly meeting, meeting maybe once a week. Maybe in the start you meet a little more often than you do as you go at the end of the work term. But making sure that they understand the kind of specifics of what you're looking for throughout that whole term. So it's important to have that consistency with not even just the supervisor itself, but with the team that they work with. And again, being available is very similar, making sure that in the start, they might have a lot of questions. We talked about the barriers that they might have to overcome, like their anxiety, just to let them know that they are feeling supported throughout that whole work term, especially in the start, day one, week one, month one. But as it goes through the whole onboarding process, know that your supervisor, whoever is in charge of the student, has that support whenever reaching out. And that's where the benefit of those kind of chat tools come in really handy. And students navigating barriers. So these are all very similar as we go through. Everyone's going to learn at different speeds. Everyone's going to have a different understanding of certain tools or systems or software that each of the employers are using. So it's important just to help them navigate those barriers. Be patient with them. Everyone will be working at a different speed. But again, all these students just want to know that they're supported throughout this pathway. And if there's any way you can help kind of adjust, take down those barriers, please consider doing those as well. There's many ways where students might be stuck at something, but as long, again, they have that support from their organization, their employer, their supervisor, they'll be able to kind of overcome that. Students are really engaged and want to work hard and want to do well and get those experiences and get those the opportunities and projects. So it's important to kind of take down those, help them take down those barriers. And one I'm really actually a big advocate for is reinforcing that team culture. So outside, hopefully maybe at the end of week one, for example, or just any moments during the work term, just reinforce team culture. Have a team meeting. If it's virtual, that's still great. But chat about something that's maybe not work related. Having those opportunities to connect with the team makes them feel more involved and connected. And again, it helps them just put that extra level piece of like, okay, this is a great place to work for. As Mindy stated earlier, it's creating that relationship, creating those opportunities of being like, okay, it's nice that you have that aspect of what you're working on in those projects and the goals that you're setting for yourself, but you know that you have a team, a culture that really also supports the opportunities that maybe aren't work related and a little more fun, which is amazing. So I'll quickly show a screen of the productivity tools. I mentioned a couple of these. All of them are a little bit similar. Asana and Basecamp are actually really good resources. Again, helps managing teams, helps with project management, sharing files. Something that I always would like to add when you're kind of using these resources, and it could be other apps or softwares, is just making sure your employer or your organization is following any privacy rules that are necessary when using these software tools. So if you're, for example, if you're looking at a university sense, we aren't able to just easily just pass on student information, student data, just willy-nilly throughout all these different software apps. So it's important to understand what you are able to kind of share and making sure you're in a protected network when you are using these tools. So something I want to mention. And now we go into wrapping up the term. So that was a lot of details, especially during the term. And I think this is a really important aspect, as it was kind of mentioned earlier in the presentation, on how you can actually realize a lot at the end of 4 months, 8 months, depends on the co-op work term. You're realizing a lot of opportunities, maybe what you can do next, what you can change for the future, and again, what you might learn about yourself if you are the supervisor or student. But I will use CWIL, as we talked about earlier in the presentation as well, to help describe on how you can offboard a student. And I think they explained it quite well. So hopefully give me maybe a visual thumbs up if you can hear the sound when this plays.
So building work integrated learning into your organization happens over time, and typically organizations who have a robust hiring process that happens regularly, usually large organizations, with certain systems and structures in place, it's easy for them. It's typically the newer organizations or small to medium-sized businesses who don't have the resources to build work integrated learning into their organizations that struggle. So after you've hired a co-op student, one of the things that you might want to do is to evaluate your return on investment. Take a look at the how your organization was supported, and sort of build off what you learned. You know, how you did the job posting. You'll have a roadmap after you've done it a few times to sort of tweak and adjust and find the right ways that meet your business needs. Maybe you hired a marketing student and potentially want to hire an accounting student. So it's sort of like an ongoing process in learning how to implement work integrated learning into your organization in like a robust way where you do it every semester. One of the things that's important to know as a participating work integrated learning partner is that you're supporting the resilient skills-based economy that Canada needs. So one of the things that has been researched is that organizations continue to struggle to find students who have the right mix of skills. And, you know, technology mixed with business, the lines are being blurred between the two. So it's like marketing technologies and all of these communication technologies integrated into business processes. So businesses continue to struggle to find the right mix of talent. And so one of the ways that you can do this is to hire different types of students from different types of programs, from different will types, in order to find the right mix and also recruit once, hire twice idea. You get to try students out for a short period of time, see if they're a fit, and then hire them after graduation. So these are some of the things to consider as you offboard your co-op student.
So I'll just follow up to some summary points on that too. It was really good, well done video. I think especially we're talking majority of co-op opportunities right now. Again, wrapping up the term, if you're finding, or wrapping up the role, if you're finding that maybe there's other will opportunities that could work for you, definitely something you can look into and see if those opportunities are more again, more of a better return on investment for you, as she was speaking about. So definitely there's a lot of opportunities, engaging a lot of different will students, and maybe a different mix of students in different backgrounds is something that I think every organization can really benefit from. So really good points there, and we can we're going to share the resources, and you'll have access to that video as well if you ever maybe wanted to share it to some other clients or organizations that you work with. So the two final things kind of to talk about is just make sure we celebrate. Again, it was discussed at the start, and we just wanted to recap a lot of these things. Recognize their efforts and achievements made during the work term. A co-op work term has a significant impact on a student's personal, academic, and professional career and pathways. It can really make them understand where they want to go and maybe where they don't want to go. So just celebrate those opportunities. Again, I'm sure there's going to be whether it be big or small, they provided an impact into your organization. It's important to recognize it, especially if it's only been for a small little while. And then questions you might want to ask yourself at the end of every work term, realistically, whether it could be done through that exit interview, or you're just kind of wrapping up loose ends and you're transitioning, kind of not having a student employee in that role anymore, and then maybe possibly you're hiring a new student, or maybe you're going to take a break, let's say for a semester or for a couple months. You kind of ask yourself, what kind of impact does this experience have on your personal, academic, and career goals? That would be to the employee, the student employee, and because you want to know. Again, this is all about reciprocal relationship building. You want the student to understand that this is just as much of a benefit for them as it is for the organization. And another question is, how will you use what you've learned in your current work term position to future opportunities or work? So it gives them an understanding of what they actually gain from working in your organization and doing the projects that were kind of assigned to them. How are they going to kind of empower themselves to be like, hey, is this something you're going to stick in this industry? Is this something you really have now realized maybe this is an opportunity, maybe it's a growth for them to start their own business in that area, right? Or are they kind of transitioning to maybe a larger scale business, or maybe transitioning even smaller scale? So these are a lot of good questions. Some of these, hopefully the answers that are provided to you, the feedback is going to make you kind of consider your the organization's leadership, the vision, the corporate vision, and maybe the reasons why you've delved into the work integrated learning world. There's, I think, just a couple more slides. I kind of just want to showcase a lot of the resources that we kind of got some of this information from. Some of them, again, this is all going to be kind of in a PDF document that you can use at the end of this. We'll send it out probably by tomorrow, and you can click some of these links. Really informative. I recommend the Diversity and Inclusion Hub as a really impactful one. We put our own website in there because you can find some of these PDF documents, as we discussed earlier, just some kind of Government BC, Work BC tips on just hiring employees. And yeah, another opportunity, INWIL Canada has a lot of different videos available just regarding work integrated learning, so highly recommend that. And yeah, there's some other resources there as well, so definitely recommend checking those out. But to recap and put everything together, so we kind of put in 3 different areas here. You know, you in the start, you're kind of preparing for your student, that opportunity, and you're going from discussing the role and expectations and supporting your student success. And kind of when you're preparing for your student, you know, we highly recommend just being transparent and having that communication with your student employee, with the co-op student, or with your WIL student is key, is crucial. I think keeping a consistent line of communication, it gives you that ability to build that relationship. And you know, trust is definitely still something very important, whether it be this work term might be remote or in person. You want to have trust within your employee, and I think always having that communication and the ability that they can come to you, and vice versa, you can go to them with feedback, is crucial. And that kind of leads me into the next one. When you're discussing kind of the role and expectations, be intentional with your constructive feedback. So, you know, there's times where, of course, a new hire, especially a new student hire, they can veer off course just a little bit than you expected, but it's important to be constructive with that feedback and kind of get them back on track, maybe on the goals that you set out in the start of the term. The students are keen and eager to learn. They want to learn. They want to be of a benefit to your organization. So they're expecting that feedback. It's just making sure it's you're being intentional with it and constructive, and you're taking the time to have this conversation with them. I think really provides that, again, that they are supported. They know that they're supported, and you're wanting them to do well. And that's, I think, something that students are going to take after this work term, after the end of that work term, and realize that those opportunities and the support there is there for them. I think really good reference was, I think, recruit once and hire twice, because you're developing that relationship that could lead into possibly hiring the student as a full-time employee or maybe a part-time employee. And then supporting your student for success. So as Don mentioned with the check-in and site visits, it becomes really handy to monitor and document the progress throughout the term. We recommend keeping notes throughout the whole work term, again, no matter the length. So you have something to easily reference when maybe you are providing feedback to the student, maybe you are having those site visits with the co-op office, and again, with any institution. You have the documentation, you have the ability to let the organization know, like, this is the student, they worked out great, and these are the areas that they succeeded on, but also, again, maybe say that, hey, maybe in the co-op preparation course, maybe if you could teach a little bit more on that. You have that ability, and we appreciate that knowledge too as well. And you're supporting, again, that student success. And another piece that I also just want to touch on that I think is very important is that the diversity and inclusion landscape is ever changing, but there are resources and tools to help employers provide an inclusive work environment and an environment that provides success for both the student and yourself. A shared sense of belonging helps all individuals achieve their highest potential and really realizes the organization's values and visions. Inclusion might require removal of barriers to allow full and equal participation and all individuals in an organization. Removing barriers could require adjustments to policies, environments, and organizational cultures, as well as fostering open communication with all employees. So it's definitely important to recognize those when you're supporting student success, those EDI initiatives. And nice little slide about upcoming events, but I also want to mention that this will be our last event for 2021. We are excited to brainstorm most of the month of December on what events we'll be doing in 2022 as it comes just kind of in the maybe around February and then going into early spring, what kind of events we'll be doing. As talked about when we spoke about the resource hub and the website, stay tuned to our newsletter to get up-to-date information on events and when we will be posting those events on our website and when you can start registering. You can always follow us on social media, but definitely we are excited to have more events coming up. And hopefully there could be more based on employer education nights, more industry night for employers, or more opportunities for employers to maybe engage with students. We did try it out a little bit throughout once this semester on an employer and student engagement event, and I think it went really well. We've got some pretty good feedback, and we'll take that and building our next one for the next winter term. But you might ask, what's next? This was a project that started pretty much in the start of January, really, even though Dawn started a couple months earlier than that. But this project is extended now into August 2022. And the goal there is to continue building those relationships with regions and clients and organizations and community partners like yourself to build that awareness of WIL. We want to kind of create and build on a student resource hub, actually more of a student experiences in WIL resource hub, and especially having a bigger sense on equity, diversity, and inclusion, having that lens when we are speaking about employment and WIL and those co-op opportunities. And we're definitely going to look at building more placements for students by engaging these small and medium-sized businesses and organizations. So we definitely want to start this upcoming year building a long-standing foundation for INWIL, and hopefully it's something of benefit to employers as we go start the new year, which is very exciting. But to say that, I think we have some time. I know there's only a couple of you here today, but we're all happy to answer any questions you have about the presentation, any notes, thoughts, feedback, constructive, of course. And we're happy to engage in any way, anything you want to talk about, Will, we're happy to talk about it.